You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Is this Governor Brian Kemp live? Go to it, please.
Understandably led to the crisis of confidence in the ballot box here in Georgia. While I am no longer Secretary of State, as governor, I was the first to call on Secretary Raffensperger to complete an audit of signatures on the overwhelming number of absentee ballots that were cast during the election. I did that 4 times publicly. I was the first to call for a change in state law through the legislature that would implement a photo ID requirement on all absentee ballots. And I joined many others, including President Trump, in urging the Secretary of State's office to quickly and fully investigate any and all fraud irregularities. I also offered the assistance of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to get to the bottom of each and every allegation of fraud. I'm proud of the dedicated men and women who answered the call to duty, but more needed to be done. We quickly began working with the House and Senate on further reforms to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. The bill I signed into law does just that. First and foremost, SB 202 replaces the signature match process with a state-issued ID requirement to request and submit an absentee ballot. When voting in person in the state of Georgia, you must have a photo ID. It only makes sense for the same standard to apply to absentee ballots as well. For example, the November 2020 election saw a 350% increase in the use of absentee balloting, over 1.3 million absentee ballots total when compared to Election Day in 2018. This obviously led local election workers to have to process far more ballots using a time-consuming, labor-intensive, and at times arbitrary process. By moving to a state-issued ID requirement instead of a signature match, Georgia will dramatically streamline the verification process on absentee ballots. SB 202 also secures all ballot drop boxes around the clock, speeds up processing to ensure quicker election results, requires security paper to allow for authentication of ballots, and allows the bipartisan state election board to have more oversight over counties who fail to follow state election law. In contrary to the hyper-partisan rhetoric you may have heard inside and outside this Gold Dome, the facts are that this new law will expand voting access in the Peach State. Every county in Georgia will now have 2 mandatory Saturdays of early voting and the option of 2 Sundays of early voting. Georgians will no doubt be soon overwhelmed with fancy TV ads, mailers, and radio spots attacking this common sense election reform measure. In fact, left-wing groups funded by out-of-state billionaires are already doing that now. They're using outrageous, false rhetoric to scare you and put millions of dollars in their own pocket. They're threatening to boycott Georgia businesses in the middle of a pandemic because they oppose election integrity. According to them, if you support voter ID for absentee ballots, you're a racist. According to them, if you believe in protecting the security and sanctity of the ballot box, you're a, quote, Jim Crow in a suit and tie, end quote. I've fought these partisan activists tooth and nail for over 10 years to keep our elections secure, accessible, and fair. Like before, I'm sure they will threaten, boycott, sue, demonize, and team up with their friends in the national media to call me everything in the book. But fighting for free and fair elections is worth all of that and more. Standing up for the constitutional rights of all Georgians is part of the oath I took as your governor, and you have my word, I will continue to uphold that oath. Putting hard-working Georgians first, starts with ensuring that your voice is heard in restoring each and every citizen's confidence in their vote. With SB 202 now becoming law, Georgians should know what the alternative being pushed by the other side contains. In Washington, D.C., Democrats and the left are showing exactly what their dangerous agenda is for all elections across the country, including here in the Peach State. By trying to ram House Resolution 1 through Congress, the contrast could not be clearer. While strengthening our voter ID laws here in Georgia, H.R. 1 would remove ID requirements on voting. What's the problem?
Folks, not quite sure what's going on there.
John Lewis, brother. John Lewis came in the room.
Let me know, please, if we have that back. Brittany, the reason I wanted to play that is because I wanted people to see the lies being told by these Republicans who are advancing Jim Crow laws. That absolutely, Brian Kemp, you spoke truth. You are Jim Crow in a suit.
Hi. Hello. We know this though, Roland. We know that this is a backlash to the historic voter turnout. But this isn't just. I won't even say it's necessarily just specific to this moment, right? This has been ongoing, right? This is the GOP's plan, is to ensure if they can't actually get people to vote behind their ideologies and their beliefs and their policies, that they're just going to make it impossible for Black and brown folks who have a different worldview to vote. So I'm absolutely not surprised. And I love what Dr. Carr was saying earlier. We can't continue to, and I pray that President Biden isn't going to go in this direction. I don't think he is, but we can't continue to play this game of reaching across the aisle, because the Republicans haven't been doing that. They haven't been doing that for a long, long time. The Republicans, they want their way by any means necessary, and they're going to continue to fight. So we have to continue to put pressure, on the president to end the filibuster and to do what's necessary so we can get H.R. 1 passed.
See, the thing that first of all, Amisha, when we spent 5 weeks in Georgia, I came back and I warned everybody. I warned everybody on this show. See, all these national media people, oh my God, look what they're doing in Georgia. Well, if you spit your ass time on the ground in Georgia, you would know exactly what's going to happen. The same thing happened in North Carolina after President Barack Obama won in 2008, where they changed the laws. The same thing has happened in Texas. This is what they do. And the thing here is, it's like all these black folk for the last 48 hours been sitting here trying to dog me because of the interview I had with this 21-year-old dude who was endorsing the voter suppression on Twitter. Booked him on the show to discuss it. Then he want to pull a bait and switch talking about self-sufficiency. And all these Negroes are like, you dishing that young man, and I'm going to give money to his school. Yet he is standing with them. Now, he tried to say on the show, oh, I don't support that. But I specifically called out all the Black Republicans. And here's the deal, Amisha. You ain't heard nothing from Alveda King. She loves running around talking about she's the niece of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But you ain't heard Alveda open her mouth. You ain't heard nothing from that thug Angie Stanton, okay, who's pimping the King name as well. All right? You heard nothing from Bruce Lavelle, standing with Donald Trump. You've heard nothing from Paris Denard. You've heard nothing from C.J. Pearson. All of these black MAGA people saying nothing. That little punk former Rep Vernon Jones, same thing. An embarrassment to Kappa Alpha Psi. Thank God he's not an alpha. But all of them, all of these black Republicans running around scared, wimps, don't want to criticize anything. And then we're trying to sell us on vote for that thug Donald Trump. Brian Kemp just stood at that news conference, Amisha, and said, well, people, they need to have trust, in the ballot. No, stupid fools like you, Kemp, got dogged by Donald Trump, lied to voters, and you idiots believed them. Republican, your own Secretary of State, a Republican, said no voter fraud. But Donald Trump, no. Check Fulton County. The ballots were coming out by the thousands. They were coming in barrels. Lies. So these white Republicans, these white Jim Crow Republicans are passing the laws based upon the big lie. And now, well, don't you call us a racist? Well, don't act like one.
You're absolutely correct, Roland. I'm going to give you credit for something that I think a lot of major media didn't pay attention to. The fact that you were down in Georgia and you were covering a lot of the change, the winds of change, the seas of change that were going to happen in Georgia long before the 2020 presidential election. And I think that with that, you also illuminated the fact that a lot of people who had previously not voted, folks who hadn't voted for years, were now going to come out, and they were going to come out in droves. Black organizing has the power to bring out multitudes of people. And I think that what we're seeing in Georgia, and what we're definitely going to see in other places as well, particularly battleground states where the black vote made the decisive victory for Joe Biden, is that state legislatures are largely still run by Republicans. And to Brittany's point earlier, these voter suppression tactics aren't new. As a matter of fact, during Barack Obama's 8 years, we saw more voter suppression bills passed at the state level than we've seen since the 1950s. This is something that has been in the works for a while now, and largely because the ideology among Republicans has always been that we have to stop progress. We have to stop gains. And the way to keep America looking the exact same way and to keep white supremacy intact is to ensure that black people don't have access to the ballots and black people don't have access to the vote. And I think that what we're seeing in Georgia is part and parcel of what we're going to see in several states across this country if we don't see action at the federal level. It's the Voting Rights Act, the reauthorization of it, but it's also making sure that the Constitution is upheld. Withholding the rights of American citizens to vote is unconstitutional. And just because Republicans feel as though their way of life is going out of style and that the country is getting more black and brown, that doesn't mean that now all of a sudden we're going to eradicate the rights of those who are American citizens. That is not what we do. This is unconstitutional. It is Jim Crow round 2.0. And it's frustrating that we hear from Governor Brian Kemp, who, as you pointed out and stated very well, was one of the biggest targets of Donald Trump. He's not a governor who was loved by that president at all, but he's also somebody who keeps bootlicking as much as possible. And I think that at this point, any Republican who stands up and acts as though voter fraud, and mind you, voter fraud in their mind means black people actually exercising their right to vote, because they are only using this term to elicit a certain angst among white voters that their way of life is going away. Voter fraud just means black people actually voted. It doesn't mean that anything fraudulent happened at all. Black people exercise their right to vote, and white people want it to go away. And that is extremely frustrating, problematic. It's something that a lot of our people fought and died for. We remember the Cheney, Schwerners, and Goodmans. We remember John Lewis. This is something that is a fundamental principle of American society, and eradicating it from black people makes us less American, makes us less democratic every day, and it should not be something that we allow to stand.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.